balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Episode number 101, Normal Newborn Breastfeeding Behavior. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I am your host, Lori Eisenstadt, IBCLC. Today, I am repeating episode number 43 as we lead into season 2 that starts next week on Monday, October 10th, 2016. You know, there is so much misinformation given to moms about the early days of breastfeeding that I was motivated to do a show that I had titled Normal Newborn Breastfeeding Behavior. Moms are being given very specific advice about the early days of breastfeeding. Sometimes it works in your favor and other times it doesn't. This show is filled with instructions moms tell me they are given on a regular basis. Things like only breastfeed from one side, or only breastfeed from both sides, but only let your feed for 10 minutes on each side, or 15 minutes on each side, and no longer. Or, one of my favorite ones, moms are told they need to wake their baby up every 2 hours during their hospital stay. And 2 weeks later, moms have plenty of milk and they are still waking their babies up every 2 hours. Moms tell me, our feedings are awful. My baby keeps falling asleep at the breast. And now it is up to me to figure this out. And I'm wondering, is your baby having several hours of really good solid sleep and good feedings, plenty of output, and you're waking him up every 2 hours? And are you having difficulty waking him up or keeping him awake because he's not really yet hungry? You are concerned, and I get to explain to you why I am not concerned. Or is your baby poorly fed and truly way too sleepy for what we would like for him to be at the breast? And I need to tell you, yeah, I am concerned. So sometimes the advice you are given definitely does not work in your favor. Listen to this show and you will find out why. It's been a pretty popular show with hundreds of downloads, which tells me that moms are really needing to hear this information. Before we begin the show today, I have a few things I'd like to share. The first is my way of celebrating and thanking you for hanging out with me for 100 shows. I wanted to remind you of the contest we're having. All you need to do is answer a few questions, answer them right, and you can win one of 3 prizes: a boba wrap, a Bravado nursing bra, or a Skype consult with me. Here is what you need to do. If you are already in the Facebook group, just go in there and you will see a pinned post with all the information. If you're not in the Facebook group, just go to Facebook and search for these 4 words, All About Breastfeeding Community, and join our group. You will see a post there with further instructions. The emails I'm getting, everybody has the right answer so far, and I'm getting many of them. And I already can see that there's a nice amount of potential winners. It's actually pretty easy to enter, and when the contest is over, 3 winners will be chosen, and perhaps it will be you. Good luck. The last thing I'd like to share with you before beginning the show is you may have already heard me talk about Baby Moon Inn, a Phoenix birthing center we're sponsoring. Listen to the information given midway through the show and you will find out how you can get a tour of the birthing center. And if you mention that you heard about Baby Moon Inn from the All About Breastfeeding podcast, They are ready to give you a free gift before leaving the tour. I have been on staff at Baby Moon Inn for the last few years, seeing Baby Moon Inn moms for breastfeeding-related challenges. Starting October 10th, 2016, you can now make an appointment with me at Baby Moon Inn office on Monday and Thursday mornings. It's very easy to do. All you need to do is go to allaboutbreastfeeding.com and follow the Book Now links to schedule your appointment. I really look forward to meeting some of my listeners and seeing you at Baby Moon Inn. Okay, let's get back to learning about normal newborn breastfeeding behavior. Let's get started. Today I'm going to talk about a subject that just annoys the bejesus out of me. It just drives me insane. Moms are being given very specific advice on how to breastfeed, and this advice is not taking into consideration every mother and baby pair, but rather treating all mothers and babies alike. And it has moms deciding how long their baby should stay feeding at the breast. It has moms timing their babies at the breast. It has moms deciding to only offer one breast per feeding. It has moms worried if their baby is getting enough fat in their milk. It has moms worried if their baby is getting too much fat in their milk. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about mothers being told to offer only one breast per feeding. So they are starting out their breastfeeding relationship only offering one breast per feeding session. It's only Wednesday, and about half of the mothers that I've already met with have been practicing one side per feeding. While each of the moms may have something a little different to the circumstances about their breastfeeding and the reason they scheduled a lactation consult with me, what they do have in common is that their milk supply is low, their babies are not gaining nearly what they should be. I ruled out all good reasons why they should have a low supply, and they've also been told to offer only one breast per feeding. Some of the moms have begun to supplement with formula. Some have begun pumping and putting their milk in a bottle and feeding this to their baby. And there's always the mom or two who come to see me who are totally frustrated and ready to give up and literally will tell me, if you can't make this all better today, if this can't be fixed today, I'm not sure I can continue. That happens a lot, and I totally understand. The moms I've seen this week, none are in that place yet. But believe me, I totally get it. This is heartbreaking and frustrating and very anxiety-producing. Moms are totally spent at this point. Their hormones are going crazy. They've just given birth. Their babies are crying frequently. Perhaps they are in pain, the moms. And the worst part is that their babies are not gaining well. And this alone can put most mothers into a major depression. When I ask moms if they know why they were told to do this, some actually answer quite enthusiastically, and they say, well, I was told to do this so I can make sure that my baby gets all the hind milk for each feeding, as this has all the fat, and this will help them gain weight really well. Well, I have to say that if I were a new mother and told this by anyone, doctors, nurses, I read it online, or a family member told me, I would totally follow this advice because I want my baby to gain weight. So much has been written about how the breast makes milk and how there is a higher fat content to human milk, and moms are then wanting to make sure their babies get enough of the fattier content so their babies gain and grow well. Moms are sometimes having breastfeeding challenges, and the answer they are told, make sure their babies get the fattier hind milk. And they are given strict rules, either by something they read, or a healthcare provider, or a friend or a family member, about how long or how frequently to feed their baby, how long to leave them on each side, whether they should offer just one side or both sides per feeding. Strict rules and normal breastfeeding usually do not go well together. So what's the real deal? I am going to do my absolute best to simplify this for you and help you understand that you should really try hard not to overthink the fat content of your milk. People are now thinking that the breasts literally make two kinds of milk. The first kind is the foremilk, have nothing to do with the second kind, which is the hindmilk. It is not two different kinds of milk, but merely this tells us at which point in the feeding the milk is. So the foremilk is the milk that a baby drinks at the beginning of the feeding, and this tends to be more watery and a higher level of lactose, which are some of the natural sugars in human milk. The hindmilk is the milk that comes near the end of the feeding and tends to be a little higher in its fat content. But because this is a constantly changing fluid, how much higher in fat is it really? The truth is, we just don't know. And that's the reality. Your milk is a constantly changing fluid. It changes its fat content from beginning to feeding to the end of a feeding, and it changes it from feeding to feeding. That is where the description of foremilk and hindmilk begins and ends. Since every mother and every baby are different, and since every mother and baby pair are different, and since feeding behaviors are different, milk storage capacity is different, and feeding frequency of babies are different, the only thing we can be sure of as far as the fat content goes is that the amount of fat in the milk gradually changes as the baby feeds. Here's what happens. As milk is produced, the fat globules tend to stick to each other and to the walls of the alveoli in the breast tissue. Between feedings, the milk collects in the breast. It gradually moves forward toward the nipple and leaves more of the fat stuck further back in the breast. The more time in between milk removal, whether it's by the baby or pump or hand expression, the lower the fat content of the milk available to the baby at the beginning of each feeding. I'm going to repeat that last part. The more time in between milk removals, the lower the fat content tends to be at the beginning of each feeding. Taking a little break so I can share this info with you. I am really psyched to be able to share this next piece of news with you. My regular listeners are very familiar at this point with Momentum, the organization that I talk about on each show. You know the one that I say, saved my life as a new mother. The organization that helped me find other mothers who were new at this whole mothering thing. They became my people. They helped me navigate that first year of motherhood and continue to mother me as I had more kids and my need for support through their toddler years and kindergarten years and elementary school years just kept being needed. I made lifelong friends and they were so helpful that I am doing all I can to continue to support the organization. I want Momentum to continue to thrive, and I want you, my All About Breastfeeding audience, to experience just some of what Momentum is all about. The ladies of Momentum have agreed to give my listeners a 14-day trial membership so you can see what this mother-centered thing is all about at no cost to you. Just hop on over to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/podcast. You will see a link from Momentum. It's in blue, and you just click it on and it will bring you to the page for you to sign up for your free trial. Honestly and truly, there's absolutely no cost to you. This is just a great opportunity for you to enjoy the discussion groups and the blogs and webinars and educational pieces that are available for free for you. I will have a link to this in the show notes. And now, back to the show. But here's the deal. Since the breast is this invisible container, and we can't see how much watery milk and how much fattier milk our baby gets during a feeding, and even if we did, we can't predict how much overall volume our baby wants from that particular feeding. How are we to know that how much the milk the baby gets, how much fat the baby gets? Are we to think that we're smarter than the baby? Meaning, can the baby get full in 10 minutes on one side? 20 minutes on one side? Does your baby need both sides for a half hour? How do we know the volume and the fat content for each particular feeding? There are a lot of things that we just don't know for sure. But one thing we know for sure is that no one knows how long it takes for our babies to get enough of the fatty or hind milk, or how much higher in fat it usually is. So the problem comes in when moms are being told specific instructions about how frequently to feed their babies, how long on each side to feed their babies, whether they should get one or both sides. There seems to be a trend of moms being told that their babies are not getting enough of the hind milk, or they're getting information from well-meaning breastfeeding helpers from the day their baby's born to only feed one side per feeding, all in the name of being sure their baby gets enough of the fatty or hind milk. Why am I up in arms about this advice? Because. The first 6 weeks are of utmost importance in building a good supply, establishing a good supply of milk that's going to meet your baby's needs. After that, it is largely maintenance of the good supply that you have established. When mothers keep their babies on one side per feeding, they run the risk of limiting the overall volume that their body makes. So they're now at 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and now they're being diagnosed with low supply and their babies are not gaining weight. Now, outside of any specific medical reason why she should have a low supply, this business of keeping a baby on one side per feeding is largely responsible for many of the mothers I work with having a low supply. The more frequently and efficiently the milk is removed from the breasts, generally the more it will make. And what are moms in the business of doing the first 6 weeks? Building a good supply for their baby. So just think about this. By putting your baby only on one side per feeding, you're basically telling your body how much milk to make, rather than trusting your baby or following your baby's cues. Your baby will tell your body how much milk to make, but if you ignore their cues and just keep putting them back on the same side for a feeding, or you're holding or rocking them, or you're giving them a pacifier, you are ignoring the signs that your baby is trying to tell you, switch to the other side, let me help you make more milk for me. I'm going to take a moment here to state that there are definitely situations where a mom truly cannot make enough milk for her baby. She has a medical condition, known or unknown, that is preventing her from building a supply that meets her own needs. This is not the mom and baby that I'm referring to. I'm also going to say that there are times when moms have an overabundant supply of milk, and her baby may be getting an overload of lactose, which tends to make babies more gassy and fussy. And it may help to manage the feedings in a proactive way to help her reduce her overall supply. However, if we put these particular situations aside and talk about the average mother and baby pair that myself and my peers see in the early days, where none of the above is an issue, what we so often are seeing is mothers who were told from the very beginning to only feed their baby for one breast per feeding to ensure their babies get enough of the hind milk. So with the mom who is just starting out, this may very well lead her to not make enough milk for her baby. And because this mom is being diligent and paying close attention to the rules she has been given by well-meaning helpers, she is doing anything but putting her baby to the other breast during the same feeding sessions. The mothers I see, they're holding their babies, they're rocking their babies, they're giving their babies to a significant other to take care of, and they're doing their best to help their babies go to sleep while waiting a few hours until it's okay to put them on the other side. Moms are giving babies pacifiers to keep their babies calm while they're waiting to put them on the other side. Some moms and parents didn't even plan on giving their baby a pacifier, but they are using it to hold their baby off from the other side until it's time. Some babies, they seem to be okay with only getting a partial feeding. What happens in a relatively short period of time, though, a week or two, you go to the pediatrician and then you realize that your baby is not gaining well. So what happens then? You are then advised to supplement feedings with formula or pumping and putting your milk in a bottle. Now, does it make sense to not offer both breasts per feeding? but it makes sense to begin supplementing? Here's the thing. If your baby is losing weight, I totally agree. Your baby needs more. But I want to see more coming directly from your breast. Just offer the other side for every single feeding. And do this from the very beginning. If your baby turns you down, it's likely they're full and getting enough. In the early days, most mothers who have an average supply and baby who is breastfeeding well will find that their baby is interested in both sides for most of the feedings. When I'm working with a mother and I have the opportunity to rule out many other possible reasons for low supply and poor weight gain, and I learn that they are just putting their baby on one side, and they tell me that they do because they were told to get all the hind milk, I will then say to the mom, so, how long do you have to keep your baby on the same side until they get the fattier hind milk? At what point in the feeding do they get the hind milk? If your baby is sleeping at the breast, can they get the hind milk? And how much hind milk does your baby need to get? You see where I'm going with this? And very quickly, the mom gets it too. When I ask you how long do you have to keep your baby on one side until they get the fattier hind milk, the answer usually is, I don't know. And when I ask at what point in the feeding do they get the hind milk, the answer usually is, I don't know. And how much milk does your baby need to get? How much hind milk does your baby need to get? And the answer is always, I don't know. You realize that there's no magic number or magic anything that tells the breast to all of a sudden start making a large volume of fattier hind milk. So my job is then to explain to moms about how the breasts make milk, the gradual change in the content of the milk, and how it is an ever-changing fluid from feeding to feeding and from beginning to end of each feeding. We experiment. During a consult, I let them feed their baby on the side that the baby's ready for, and they're shocked to see how little their baby gets, especially when I share with them about how much their baby needs for most feedings in order to gain well. So for instance, one of the moms that I saw today, her baby was 17 days old. And from about 25 minutes on one side, the baby got 32 milliliters. And the baby came off. And the mom thought that the baby was still a little hungry. So I said, what would you typically do? She said, well, put the baby back on the breast and let the baby get more. So we measured, and the first time the baby got 32 milliliters. Then she put the baby back on, left him there until he seemed disinterested. And he got 2 milliliters, and it was about 7 or 8 minutes. And I'm not usually timing babies at the breast. It's just for this kind of experiment, it's helpful for parents to really see. And the baby still didn't seem full. So I said to the mom, so what would you do now? And she said, well, put the baby back on the same breast because he obviously didn't get enough. And we did this once more, and the baby got like 3 or 4 milliliters. So all told, the baby still didn't even get 40 milliliters. And I said to her, can we experiment a little bit? She's like, sure. So we put the baby on the other side, and this baby, who was mostly sleeping at the breast at this point, quite disinterested, came onto the breast, and within a couple of minutes, you could just see this baby's feeding pattern. This suck, swallow, breathe, that the mouth was opening and closing in beautiful wide gape. And she could tell that the baby was extremely active, interested, and engaged in breastfeeding. And the baby spent, I'm not really quite sure, maybe another 10 or 15 minutes. And her baby actually got another 45 milliliters on the other side and was very happy to take it. And I spent about another 20 minutes or so with her, and the baby did not spit up the milk. Here, I'm able to prove to the mother and say, if you leave your baby on one side, your baby may get 30 or 40 milliliters, but your baby is really wanting and needing at least double that. And here is why your supply is starting to drop. You really need to give both sides. Now, the next mother, I could have done that. And on the other side, that side may only give the baby 10 or 15 milliliters before the baby keeps falling asleep, and she pumps and finds she hardly has any milk left over, basically. Now, I know the baby's going to get more milk than the pump can, but this is fairly indicative about how much she has. And at this point, what her body is saying is that it needs a little bit longer to have a little bit more milk available for the feeding. Clearly, her supply is not meeting what the baby needs. So really what this did, this little experiment that shows me, and not really shows me, I shouldn't say that, but it really shows the mother and helps to convince her the baby needs both sides. And this is what happens, all because some well-meaning breastfeeding helper or poor information in a book doesn't realize how the breasts make milk, and it does not trust in the process of breastfeeding. The good news is that if a mom comes in early enough and gets help soon enough, and this is really her only issue with breastfeeding, well, then we can usually turn it around, and sometimes in a matter of just a few days or a week or so. It may take some work of not only putting her baby to the breast, but maybe doing some additional pumping, perhaps taking some herbs, and perhaps, just really motivating moms to really work at it, but she'll get there in a relatively quick period of time. What I've learned is that once moms and their babies are 8 weeks or so longer, it becomes more difficult, a lot more work, and longer to help build their supply. Some moms are back to work at this point. Some are just so tired, and some lack the motivation to follow a care plan. Some moms are kind of depressed over this and are not in such a great place emotionally to work hard at it. Some babies have become so used to the bottles and formula that they've started refusing the breast. So you see, this is why I think it's a big deal. Now you can see why I get crazy over this kind of mismanagement of breastfeeding. Why? Because it puts mothers and babies through a very frustrating, lonely, and depressing time period when they really should be enjoying their motherhood. Why? Because sometimes the breastfeeding is lost as moms are unable to put in the extra hard work to build their supply. And also, some moms do put the hard work in and their effort, and they still don't see their supply build. So yes, when the breastfeeding is lost because mom was given crappy advice, the wrong advice for the wrong reason, yes, it totally pisses me off. I think I have said that I'm going to do a show that I talk about circumstances when mothers and babies do have a medical circumstance that prevents them from exclusively or partially breastfeeding, and that does prevent moms from making enough milk for their baby, or that their babies are unable to breastfeed. I will do this show, I will. It just takes a little more work and thought, and I'll probably have to type it out to make sure I remember all the little parts to it. So next month, I promise, I'll give you that show. And I will announce it ahead of time, so for my listeners who have asked for this info, you can watch out for it. For now, what I really want you to know is that you really want to be darn sure that you have a very good reason for only offering one breast per feeding, and that you have a pretty darn good reason for purposely lowering your overabundant supply by following one-sided feedings. Breastfeeding mothers really understand that their milk is a very important commodity and that you don't want to mess with Mother Nature for the wrong reasons. Have you heard that Phoenix, Arizona is blessed with an amazing birthing center? Baby Moon Inn Birth Center is the best option for families who want access to midwifery care in and out of a hospital setting. You can experience birth in a comfortable home-like setting where natural birth is the focus. Laboring in water, being able to walk outside during labor, and enjoy the beautiful garden. This is what birth can be like for you. There is so much more to learn about Baby Moon. The staff would love to have the opportunity to meet you and would like to extend an invitation for you to attend a free Choices in Childbirth class and a tour of the birth center. All you need to do is call 602-314-7755. That's 602-314-7755 and ask for the tour dates. You can also go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/podcast. And on the right-hand side of the page, you will see a link that will bring you to the calendar, and you can sign up for the tour yourself. When you come in for the tour, make sure that you tell them you found out about it from the All About Breastfeeding podcast, and you will be given a very lovely free gift.